As we celebrate the 4th of July, Independence Day, as we gather as a people of faith to pray for our home, it's important for us to draw the Scripture message in deeply. Our first lesson reminds us that in our spiritual heritage, there is that deep memory of a time when God's people were oppressed and enslaved. And it's never okay to turn around and visit that on somebody else. That the stranger, the foreigner, the misfit cannot be oppressed by God's faithful people. Our second lesson, the author of the Hebrews reminds us that this world, this universe, is a temporary place for us. As much as we build a home here, as much as we strive to serve what's greater than ourselves, both in heaven and on earth, we're only traveling through. Our ultimate citizenship is in heaven, and our ultimate home. Our gospel story, Jesus, as Matthew loves to describe him, takes the traditional message and pushes it as far as he possibly can. Don't just be good to those who are good to you. Be like your Father in heaven, who sends the rain and the sunshine on the good and the bad. Be perfect. Of course, we're not ever going to be perfect, but the calling is to be dedicated to that constant growth and progress and virtue. If you're like me, you can't help be aware as we celebrate the birth of our nation, be aware of the tensions that have been going on within our borders in the last few months. Tensions and violence between law enforcement and persons of color, especially the African American community. Murderous assault on Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina, and the ongoing arson, burning of churches in that state. As much as our country has accomplished in its 200-plus years history, as much as we have collectively stood up for equality and justice, we're not perfect yet. We have a ways to go. As both Christians dedicated to the following of Jesus' example and teaching, and as Americans, as citizens who stand for a higher purpose in governance than simply stability and economics, but a principle of justice and equality and fair play, of human dignity. It's also our calling to carry that torch forward and leave this place better than we found it. Conversations continue to come up as events of the last few months unfold about tolerance, our ability to live beside those who are different from us, ethnically, spiritually, religiously, etc., etc. It's all reminded me of a workshop that I was invited to be part of, one of those panel discussion things where they bring in several talking heads to address a common theme, and then hopefully there's some interaction with the audience. Well, I was called to be one of those talking heads. This was about liturgy and worship back in the day when I was a priest in Los Angeles. And I was invited because I was chaplain for a Native American group that had been doing a lot of work to bring traditional music and symbol and custom and meld it in with our worship liturgy in a way that was meaningful. And of course, the conversation came up about tolerance and differences and how we manage all that together. And my response back then is the same thing I'm feeling today. Tolerance isn't good enough. Tolerance doesn't cut it. Tolerance makes me think of my childhood growing up in the Cold War with what we called back then détente. Communist Russia, the United States of America, pointing ballistic missiles at one another, staring each other down, with some kind of tacit agreement, some kind of détente, that we weren't going to get into an open conflict. For citizens in our nation, for us as Christians, reaching to the world around us, tolerance doesn't cut it. Détente isn't good enough. The gospel, the principles of equality and justice in our Constitution, the love of neighbor in the gospel, tells us that it's really about respect. Tolerance simply means I'm not going to shoot you. You're not going to shoot me. We're going to try to coexist. Respect means I won't marginalize you. I won't push you out. Respect means you won't exploit me, even if you have the means and opportunity. Respect means we acknowledge the God-given dignity in each of us, created with unalienable rights, as we Christians would say, created in the image and likeness of God. As Christians, we're called to grow in virtue, to progress, to leave this world better than we found it. And I believe as Americans, we are called in the same way, to progress, to grow in virtue as a people and as individuals, and to leave this nation better than it was when we received it. And I really believe, without being overly idealistic, each generation at its best has done that from 1776 forward. It's our turn, each in our own day, to do the same. To receive the gift of faith in Christ, the gift of freedom and citizenship, to progress in virtue as individuals and people, and to leave behind to the next generation something better than what we received. My brothers and my sisters, today let's draw deeply from God's grace as we ask God's continued blessings for our country and ourselves. Let us celebrate the tremendous gift we have living here. And let us be dedicated in God's grace to carrying forward the torch of equality and justice and leaving this homeland better than the way we received it.